Success isn't luck. It's a war. One man rewrote every rule, from a defiant cadet to a global empire. Today, Flight of Genius uncovers the blueprint of power. How do you turn ashes into gold? Watch closely and let's fly.
Queens, New York, 1946. A time of post-war dreams and growing ambitions. In a quiet neighborhood, a boy was born who would eventually rename the skyline. But back then, he was just a handful. Young Donald wasn't like the other kids. He had too much fire, too much noise. He didn't just break the rules, he ignored them. His father saw the spark, but he feared the chaos. He needs structure, they said. And just like that, at 13 years old, the golden boy of Queens was packed away. The New York Military Academy. Cold mornings, iron-pressed uniforms, harsh discipline. This wasn't a school. It was a forge. He learned to march. He learned to lead. But most importantly, he learned to win. The rebel was gone. A fighter had emerged. The gates of the academy were opening, and Manhattan was waiting. Wharton was over. The lessons were learned. But for Donald, Brooklyn and Queens were just the beginning. He didn't want to build apartments. He wanted to build monuments. Across the river, Manhattan was calling, a concrete jungle, waiting for a new king. They said it was impossible. The Commodore Hotel was a wreck, a ghost of the past. New York was on the brink of bankruptcy, but Donald saw something else. He saw glass. He saw chrome. He saw opportunity. The transformation was complete. The Grand Hyatt rose from the ashes, and with it, the Trump name was everywhere. He had done it. He had moved from the sidelines to the center of the world's most famous stage. Next came the masterpiece, Fifth Avenue, Trump Tower. He wanted it taller, shinier, more expensive than anything else. He didn't just want a building, he wanted perfection. Gold, marble, and his name carved in stone. By the mid-'80s, Donald Trump wasn't just a builder. He was a brand, a symbol of the American dream or American greed, depending on who you asked. But one thing was certain, the man from Queens had conquered Manhattan. The 90s hit like a tidal wave. The Taj Mahal, his crown jewel, was sinking in debt. $9 billion. The empire wasn't just cracking, it was imploding. For the first time, the man who had everything was about to lose it all. The world was watching, waiting for the crash. They told him to file for bankruptcy. They told him to walk away, but he didn't. He did what he does best. He negotiated. He stared down the biggest banks in the world and convinced them that he was too big to fail. It wasn't just about money. It was about survival. Slowly, the tide turned. He wasn't just back in the game. He was rewriting the rules. He turned his struggle into a story. And that story was about to become the biggest show on television. The mogul was becoming a myth. 2004, The Apprentice. Suddenly, every household in America was in his boardroom with two simple words: "You're fired." He became more than a businessman. He became a cultural icon, the ultimate authority, and the world couldn't look away. He had conquered the skyline. He had conquered the airwaves. But for a man who never stops, there was still one more tower to climb, the highest one of all. A building with a very specific Oval Office. The next chapter was about to change. Everything. June 2015. One moment changed everything. Down the golden escalator he came, leaving the world of luxury behind. They laughed. They called it a publicity stunt. But the mogul had a different plan. He wasn't just running for office. He was starting a movement. And for the first time, the outsiders were taking over. He went where no one else dared to go. The Rust Belt, the forgotten towns. Thousands gathered, not to hear a politician, but to hear a fighter. The noise was deafening. The momentum was unstoppable. He was breaking every rule of the game, and the people loved it. November 8th, 2016. The night the world stood still. One by one, the walls fell. The experts were wrong. The polls were wrong. As the map turned red, the reality set in. The outsider had done the impossible. The keys to the kingdom were now in his hands. Inauguration Day. A new era had begun. He didn't come to fit in. He came to disrupt. From the very first day, the battles were constant, but he didn't care. He was the commander-in-chief, and he was doing things his way. 4 years of headlines, 4 years of tension. He shook hands with kings and faced down enemies. He was the most talked about man on the planet. But the final act was yet to come. A storm was gathering, and the fighter was ready for one last round. January 2021. For the first time in years, the cameras stopped flashing. The mogul had left the ultimate building. Behind the closed doors of his estate, the storm was quieted, but his mind was never at rest. The chapter was closed, but the book was not yet finished. They thought the silence was a surrender, but a fighter is most dangerous when he is quiet. While the world moved on, he was watching, rebuilding his forces, rewriting his strategy. He understood one thing before everyone else. In the modern world, the only battleground that matters is attention. November 2022. He announced his return, not to repeat the past, but to conquer the future. They didn't know how to stop him. The outsider was back. The energy was electric. The movement was unstoppable. It wasn't just a political comeback. It was a masterclass in relentless persistence. He is a man who writes his own rules, who turns every obstacle into a step, who understands that the greatest power is the power of attention. Whether you love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. The mogul, the myth, the fighter. The next chapter is already underway. In a world full of noise, the greatest rule is simple: never stop. He taught us that when raw power merges with evolution, anything is possible. The boundaries of reality are shifting. Witness the return of a man who writes his own rules. Witness the return of a man who refuses to repeat the past, but to conquer the future. In the year 2050, a new era of power emerges. The future is here.